Welcome to Simply Robotics, the podcast exploring the animation industry one episode at a time. I'm your host, Monique. You can find me on all social media platforms at Simply Robotics, SIMPLYROBOTIX. When listening to the show, use the hashtag SimplyRoboticsPod to join in on the conversation. So we are back. Tell me, did you go and watch Onward? What were your thoughts? Don't forget, as I said, use the hashtag SimpleRoboticsPod or at me on social media, and we can talk about Onward if you have seen it, or if by listening to the episode, if that made you a bit interested in it or not. Today, I'm going to be talking about The Willoughbys, which is currently playing on Netflix. It was released April 22nd of 2020, aka this year or the year that almost was. I don't know. It was, past, present, directed by Kris Pearn, who also directed Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2. It's also based on the book of the same name by Lois Lowry. The book was written, or at least it was published in 2008. The production company is Bron Studios, who also contributed to the 2019 Addams Family, the CG animated film. So by the trailer, I feel like I could kind of see some of the similarities in the stylistic choices, but I wonder what the production studios really have to do with that. And it is narrated by Ricky I had practiced saying his name and now I can't. Gervais, I think. I really should have listened to how someone introduced him. But anywho, once I found out that he was the narrator, I felt like, okay, this movie probably is going to be a wild ride. Moving on, I watched the trailer. I actually watched the trailer for the first time before hitting record. I actually had to run it back and watch it a second time because I wanted to make sure that I paid more attention than I did the first time to it. So after watching the trailer, I felt like this is definitely visually appealing. It doesn't fall completely into the whole like Pixar, Disney CG look. However, it does, I don't know, I guess like the way that CG is done, it's almost like not even CG, just the way like animation is done, it's almost impossible to not fall into like the whole big head, big eyes, small nose, small mouth type of thing. And they almost basically kind of look like popsicle sticks or something like that. Popsicle sticks. They look like lollipops. That's what I'm trying to say. So I don't know how far off from that kind of character design template people end up wanting to go, but the character design and the style choice for this film was still very pleasing to me. Like, I know that I've seen this before, but I don't feel like it's been beaten over my head. And maybe that could be just because it's from a different studio. I do not know. So on the absolute surface, the story seems relatively predictable. However, that I know that this is going to have a lot of twists and turns because on the surface, it just seems like kids wish they had different parents. Then they do something so that they don't have parents. And they're like, we're kids and we don't need parents, or we are going to create our own family that's better and more functional, And I guess by the end of the movie, they realized that their family was perfect all along, even though it wasn't maybe cookie cutter, but it was perfect for them. So we'll see how accurate I am by the end of all this. Or maybe it's that family isn't just whoever you're related to, but it's the family you create is your family as well. Those messages usually are common in these type of things, but I know it's not going to be a straight path to whatever ultimate theme or message that they're sending with this. After watching the trailer, I felt like I'm actually really looking forward to this, which is refreshing because of the last two movies I watched. And unfortunately, I've never heard of the book, so I don't know how close to the movie designs, how close to the book illustrations this movie design is, or if I'm saying that correctly. Let me try again. I don't know if the design of this film is super close to the illustrations in the book. That is what I do not know because I've never heard the book before. And, it is what it is. So before I move on, I will say that I do want to know a bit more about the parents, and I wonder if they're going to give us a little backstory. I know for sure that they're going to have a moment, maybe like a montage or something, where they show us the family dynamic and just like the way the family operates on a day to day. But I kind of wonder why how the parents got to be the way the parents are, right? It's curious to me. So Netflix describes this movie as four siblings with horribly selfish parents hatch a plan to get rid of them for good and form a perfectly imperfect family of their own. Ta-da! The IMDb description goes, convinced they'd be better off raising themselves, the Willoughby children hatch a sneaky plan to send their selfish parents on vacation. The siblings then embark on their own high-flying adventure to find the true meaning of family. So it kind of sounds like I'm onto something, but we'll see. I'm going to go watch the movie and then I'll come back to talk about it. I am back. I have watched the movie and I am now ready to get into it. Let's start off with the characters. First up, we have Jane Willoughby, who is voiced by Alyssa Cara. I really appreciated the casting for Jane. I love Alyssa's voice, and I love whenever Jane is talking and singing, and I actually just really like seeing Jane on the screen. Jane is the middle child, basically, and she has a passion for singing. Next, we have Tim Willoughby, who was voiced by Will Forte, and he's the rational oldest child. Then we have the Barnaby twins. This is, the babies or whatever. They're not babies, but they're younger, the youngest ones. And they're voiced by Sean Cullen. They are creepy, yet insanely smart. And it seems like they're always inventing things. They share a sweater, which I guess I'll get into a little bit later. But I find that them constantly swapping the sweater with one another was just like a random thing that just happened consistently. Then we have the cat, which is named by Ricky Gervais. That's how I'm going to pronounce his name. The cat is the narrator, and he adds that like British flair to the movie. Ricky is just funny. It was a nice touch to the movie. I don't have no other comments. Then we have the nanny, who's voiced by Maya Rudolph. And I feel like we really need to give Maya her things. I don't know how much voice acting she's done. I would assume she's done a lot. I feel like for me, her voice doesn't trump the character that she's narrating, which happens often with celebrities. You can just hear the celebrity's voice more than you can see the character that's on screen. She did a wonderful job as the nanny. The nanny is a very eccentric individual, and I appreciated the little snippet of her backstory that we received. Next, we have Commander Melanoff, voiced by Terry Crews, and this is the character that I was just talking about. Like, I knew this voice from somewhere, but I couldn't figure it out. And for a small moment, I was like, is this Jamie Foxx? But we definitely would have known if Jamie Foxx was in the movie because it would have been a bit more publicized. He voices the joyous owner of a candy factory. So think of like, a little bit like a Willy Wonka, but not completely. Next, we have the mother, voiced by Jane Karakowski. This is a neglectful mother. She only cares about father and knitting. And this goes back to, despite the fact that she only cares about knitting, she only knitted one sweater for the two twin boys. One, and that's why they're sharing it all the time. Then we have the father, who is voiced by Martin Short, neglectful father that only cares about the mother. At least the mother cares about knitting too. The father really doesn't seem to care about anything else. Next, let's go into the visual style of the movie. It's very painterly and illustrative. The main characters, or better put, the characters with speaking roles, have the most detail put into their designs than some of the other surrounding characters. And I feel like they did a very good job at using colors to set the mood and the tone for the scenes. Now, the speaking characters, like I said, have the most detail, but some of the the secondary speaking characters, though they didn't have as much detail, they were so cute to look at. And then as you moved further out to background characters, their designs got very simplified, almost looking like cutout shapes. I also like the approach to the Willoughbys' hair. It's basically strands of yarn, so it has a little like twist in it, and you can really see the texture, and the strands don't move individually, which I think is good because I would imagine that could get a little chaotic. They move more so like as a unit. The nanny seems to have hair like wool or like fluffed out felt maybe. Melanoff's mustache is very fluffy, almost like cotton candy. So I love how all of these different textures end up existing multiple times on the screen together, you know? At one point, we see with the kids, we and the kids see like the perfect family. And I found it to be interesting that this perfect family was an interracial couple with biracial kids. I don't really have much more say to that. I don't want to get deep in think piece world. I was just like, oh, this is new here. I'm not mad at this. Could be interesting. The animation style is wacky and zany, pretty similar to Despicable Me, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. There's a lot of physical humor and gags, and it doesn't get all the way up to like a Looney Tunes atmosphere, but things do get pretty close. And I guess you can say even in some ways it pays homage to those type of cartoons at the very least. There also has a bit snap to the animation, which seems kind of similar to films like Trolls 2 most recently, and also Into the Spider-Verse. I guess this was probably animated like on ones a lot of times, and I'm not going to get into that. If you know, you know. The storytelling now, there's kind of like this subplot that's happening, and it weaves in and out of the main plot, which caught me off guard at first because I was like, did we really spend 20 minutes about this thing that is not about the movie? Like, I was like, did the trailer mislead us and the movie's really going to be about this instead? But it was just all a seed that was planted or vehicle to move the plot forward. And I really appreciate that. A bit more about the storytelling. I feel like it had like a nice pace to it, you know? It didn't seem like it was going like too fast or too slow. There was breathable moments. There was some suspense with it. And I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I'm just going to keep it moving. Final thoughts. I kind of think that this was just what I needed after watching Trolls World Tour and watching Onward. Like, it was nice to watch something, for me personally, that I was actually entertained by. If you enjoyed Trolls World Tour or Onward, I'd like to advise you to watch the Willoughbys and reflect on what a better time you had with this movie than with those two. I want to guarantee that this is more fun than those two movies. And I guess maybe depending on the age of your child could possibly have more fun with Trolls 2 than the Willoughbys. But I feel like I doubt it. I could understand, but I doubt it. So honestly, this movie was just really, really refreshing for me. It takes you, yes, on a roller coaster ride from its style and constant contrast of shape languages and color languages against one another, then to the pacing of the story and then some. So in terms of like the shape language, I mean that the Willoughbys, they're pretty like, yeah, they're kind of a bit like a lollipop or something like I was saying earlier, right? But then you have the nanny who's very circular and round, and her hair and her face kind of almost make a heart in a sense. And Melanoff is like big and blocky. And then the character relating to the subplot, it's such a snappy, fast-paced, moving character that's very also round and cute and stylistically is against everyone else in the film, which was also a very interesting decision that was made there. And the way that, you know, the big characters and the small characters and the sharper looking characters and the thinner looking characters, you know, I just really enjoyed that part. I really didn't want this to be a spoiler episode because I want y'all to, after this, go and watch it and have a good time. But hands down, this is one of the better animated family films that I've watched in a while. And that is also probably worth mentioning that it gets a bit dark at times. And I just can't take even the cookie cutter darkness. Like, go dark. So I can conclude by saying I can see myself watching this again and again and again by myself, with friends, with kids, with my mother, like whatever. And I feel like we'll all find a lot of enjoyable moments with this movie. Now, unfortunately, I do not have official animation news. I don't know, like I feel like I'm not really coming across things that much. So I'm not too sure, but I will say that we announced on the Diverse Tune social media platforms that we will start to have digital events, if you will, similar to a way that a lot of conferences and organizations are now having virtual events. We were already intending on doing some of those ourselves because we want to be able to continue reaching our community who's not here on the East Coast. But with COVID, we have been speeding up the process of getting things working. So I believe by next month, which will be June, we will be starting to have our virtual events. So follow Diverse Tunes on all social media platforms or your favorite one. That's fine. You can sign up for the newsletter and keep in the know. If you're signed up to my newsletter, you will be in the know. Obviously, I'll also post it on my own social media platforms. But that's about all the news I have. So I hope you all are doing well. Really short episode. I mean, I didn't want to spoil it. I really, really enjoyed this. Like I said, I would watch it again. And let me know what you think. You can find me on all social media platforms at Simply Robotics, SIMPLYROBOTIX. My website is simplyrobotics.com. Don't forget to use the hashtag SimplyRoboticsPod so that I can see your comments and, we can talk about the movies. What things should I watch? I have actually an extensive list. I shouldn't even do that, but I'm going to do it anyway. Bye.